Hi, I'm here with Daniel. Daniel, can you tell me who you are, what you do, and how long you've been doing it for, please?
Sure. My name is Daniel Stachowiak. I'm a UK, a British entrepreneur of Polish extraction. I am the founder and managing director of MyDocSafe, which is an electronic signature and client portal platform catering primarily to professional services firms. And I've been doing it for the last 10 years.
Oh, okay. So what made you start My Doc Safe?
Well, it was, there was an anecdote that I tell people, but it's a bit long. But in a nutshell, I wanted it for myself. I wanted a tool which would host securely all my mission critical documents, and I would like ideally someone else to really manage and do all the housekeeping for me. And that's basically the idea behind MyDocSafe. We built a cloud document management system similar to Dropbox, added electronic signature facility similar to DocuSign, packaged it, made it much cheaper than either of them, and started offering it to professional services firms.
And how long have you been doing that for?
So in a couple of weeks, we'll have 10-year anniversary of company incorporation.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And how long have you had product in market for of that 10 years?
I would say probably around 6 or 7. So the first 3 years, we were pretty much building the product. Our first paying client came in 2016.
Great. Okay. And the trajectory of many businesses in software as a service, is it a subscription service? What's the business model?
Yes.
Is a subscription. So
Yes.
often the trajectory of the commercial trajectory of those businesses can be a hockey stick. Sometimes it can be, there can be a slow climb while you reach a product market fit and also the volume of customers that you need. How's the journey been? How's the growth journey been?
I think in our case, it's more of a step function where there is a brief period of hockey stick and then more of a gradual plateau and then another one, with each step driven primarily by either a change of strategy or let's say acquisition of a new channel partner or a very successful marketing campaign. But if you zoom out of that step function, it pretty much looks like a gradual line with a little bit of a zigzag.
Right. And I bet because of the business that you're in, you're very data driven.
Of course, yes, and more so as we grow, as we get more data. But well, the sort of the growth trajectory is also driven by the way that by your capital structure. Do you have institutional investors? Are you bootstrapped? How aggressive your growth ambitions are. And in our case, because we did not go for institutional money, we made a conscious decision of slowing down growth and focusing primarily on a great product. And we were fortunate to break even relatively early, which gave us the comfort to basically build a great piece of technology and not really worry about KPIs or external pressures for growth.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, institutional money does put pressure on entrepreneurs. Often it's they expect you to go all out very quickly. That can destroy some businesses and it can put intense pressure on teams. How have you found developing your team over the last few years? Have you got a rock solid team? Has there been quite a lot of churn in your team? How do you structure it?
I've been very fortunate. Basically, most of the people I work with now have been with me since the very beginning. And to me, that's one of the key factors in our modest but still nevertheless a success in being able to break even without much funding. A solid team means there is a lot of institutional memory, and as the time grows, we just do things faster and faster because we've built a lot of Lego boxes, and suddenly we realize we can add value on top of that piece of tech. No one needs to learn, from scratch to sort of understand how to do it. Newcomers have the challenge because they cannot be really productive straight away, and for that reason, we decided that we're not going to overhire. because that slows us down dramatically. If I've even tried some metrics of trying to figure out how many people do I need in order to double the speed of production, so to speak. I mean, we're producing code, so you could also say that there is a speed of production for features and code, and it feels that you need to bring in 4 or 5 times more people to double the speed. So for a small business like ours, that makes absolutely no commercial sense at the moment. We are much faster, even though we're small, and this is a paradox. We hope to be able to afford, a major recruiting campaign next year, but only when we have, I would say, a very good plan of how to ingest those new hires, because there are big costs involved in that.
Yes, there are, and it could be expensive to get the wrong people as well, as we all know. I think some people in other industries might be surprised at that the ratio between bringing new people in and the productivity isn't more. That you don't get out with the extra headcount. It's not just about laying pipe, or it's not just about producing widgets, because it's a team effort. What systems and processes have you installed into the team in order to make sure that your productivity is there, and that any new team members that come in are going to be able to work as productively as possible?
Yes, so here it's a puzzle, and well, there are processes. We deployed several processes to capture knowledge and document it, digitize it, so that it's there for newcomers. So, for example, let's say this Zoom call. If we do Zoom calls every day, several times a day, sometimes depending on the need and problem, and we make lots of mistakes. I mean, I would say it's almost a sign of productivity and of a good team that we make lots of mistakes, because we learn from them, we iterate, and then we try to figure out, well, how not to make those mistakes again. And we then document the sort of potential approach if there is a human process that needs to be changed, and then we record it, and then we put it somewhere, and someone new comes in, and they look at it and say, oh, okay, that's interesting. Yeah. So this is almost like an overhead of housekeeping after productive session. So this is a very non-productive session, but still valuable, because it almost sort of embeds the discovered knowledge within the team, but that later makes training new people easier.
Yeah, no, that's really great learning. So you're kind of integrating, perhaps, is it lean methodology that you're using, and then you're taking those learnings and recording them? Is that the basis of your system?
Yes, pretty much. So we do the sprints, we do the Kanban, we do the agile, all of that. But that's sort of the sort of the positive path where everything works well. Now we are ISO 27001 certified, so we need to have stress tests. We need to have that institutional knowledge, because we have sort of instilled a continuous improvement in our processes. It's part of our DNA. Not just because of the certification, but because it's just good business.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. What is your head count, and how many staff have you got inside the business?
We have a dozen people.
Right. How many, sorry?
A dozen.
Dozen people. Okay, so that's enough. That's definitely enough to keep you busy. And is the team structure you run the whole team, do you?
Yes. Well, we have head of engineering who I would say, I mean, I'm not interfering, of course, in the sort of the architecture of the system. We have a separate DevOps, and also that's a sort of almost a separate vertical. We have a testing team that is also semi-independent, and then in terms of marketing, that's pretty much just me and the team. So because we're still small, everyone knows everyone else. There is a lot of all hands on deck when needed, but we definitely don't have any unnecessary sort of meetings where people need to listen to things that are not really relevant to them. I think it's much more opting in. Do you need to know? Do you need to spend your time listening? And then you're part of the meeting.
Yeah. Okay. So you've built up a meeting rhythm inside the business then?
I'm sorry?
You've built up a meeting rhythm inside the business?
Yes, there is a meeting rhythm. It's sort of different sort of constellations of the team on different days of the week, depending on the topic. And then, of course, when we have a big release or something really got wrong, then we have a slightly different format where we need pre-work and we need some brainstorming. We need some, sort of system-wide decisions.
Yeah.
So I would say we have 3 formats for meetings, but I'm telling you this now only because you asked. It's not like we actually have that format written down somewhere. It just happens that way.
It's always good to get structure in any business, and sometimes structure can come in the form of habit, which is not necessarily a bad thing when it becomes very natural inside a business. So, what about the growth of the business? Firstly, how do you identify your product as being different in the market? What's its USP?
Well, there's 2 simple things. One is the breadth of the product, and then it's price. So, we believe we are better than DocuSign, and we are less than half as expensive. So that's a starter for anyone who needs to sign. But then on top of that, you have workflow automation tools, you have electronic questionnaires, you have secure client portals, you have ability to run ID checks and stitch up end-to-end processes for onboarding clients. So we can solve very simple problems, such as just get your documents signed cheaper, or why don't you automate your entire customer onboarding or employee onboarding workflow, which takes weeks, costs tons of money, and you could stitch it up and run it electronically through us. So we have this breadth of solutions that can appeal to very small businesses, but also we have large businesses that work with us. So that's, I would say, a blessing and a curse, because we definitely don't want to be everything to everybody.
Yeah.
We pretty much are solving a genre of digital problems, which I would call sort of the relationship problems, or sort of getting started with someone, so that there is data, trust, and money that need to change hands between someone on the inside of the organization and someone on the outside. Yeah. And this is something that is problematic, because you don't want to do this over letterbox or an encrypted email. You need something in the middle which is secure, encrypted, and allows you for that automation. And that's where we sit. And that problem is universal across industries and across sizes of companies. Yeah. And that's what we've discovered so far.
So in terms of your growth goals for the next 12 months, have you identified, you don't have to go into detail, though you can, of course, have you identified where you see the growth coming from?
Yes. So we realized that as a small team, the most bang for the buck, so to speak, is we get from automation, from standardization of specific narrow use cases. So we have this, as I mentioned earlier, a set of Lego boxes from which we can stitch up lots of things for different people, but we can't do all of them. So we pick one at a time and then try to do it really well. So the next thing we're going to do is actually completely rewrite our proposals module to allow professional services firms to sign up their clients end to end, from service selection through to contract and payment and ID checks, etc., in a much slicker way than our legacy product. And this could appeal to 4 or 5 industries. And once we have that, we're going to move on to the next one. We have already identified it. It's going to be actually a retail product. I can't tell you more, but just to give you a flavor of it, we have hundreds of thousands of portals created by people who hold their documents in there. It's like having a wallet.
Yes.
Well, you could put many things in a wallet.
Yes.
You could use it in a number of different ways, and we've identified that as a big opportunity for growth for us. So we will make that wallet much more useful than it is right now. Right.
So the product is being sold internationally?
Yes, primarily in English-speaking countries, although we have just translated our app into almost a dozen languages.
Wow, that's incredible. A dozen languages, that's very impressive, and must have been a considerable amount of work. And how many
Google Translate and ChatGPT are great tools in that process.
They are great tools. But it still needs a human at the just to do the final checks, I often find. Sometimes Google Translate can give you some slightly strange
So we would call it beta translations. I can't. I do hope that users who will spot mistakes and then let us know about them.
Yeah, okay. That's really useful. How many users do you have globally now?
Well, we are sort of, I don't want to tell you precise numbers, but we're talking about hundreds of corporates and tens of thousands of end users. So it's I would say um, modest when you compare us to DocuSign, but sufficient to give us enough feedback data and ultimately money to continue innovating and building our presence in the market.
Yeah, I mean, you're in a market where there are some, I'll term them gorillas in the room, with the likes of DocuSign and PandaDoc and some of those things that have very, very defined uses. It sounds like your product has got more uses, and I completely understand the requirement for a digital wallet. I mean, it makes a huge amount of sense for all of us. Having all our documents, all our data in different places that needs to be secured in one place makes a lot of sense, and people struggle with that. I personally struggle with that, so I can really understand the potential for growth in the business. So what are the main challenges at the moment in your business journey? We often look at, as business coaches, what we often look at is we look at some of the three kind of key areas. They're usually time, the amount of time the team is spending developing the product or the market, or how much resource you're putting into certain things, or it's team, it's recruiting, retaining, training, productivity, measuring productivity, or money. There's simple cash coming in the business. We're in a very challenging environment at the moment for many businesses because of the cost of living crisis. So what are your pain points? What are the challenges that you're facing at the moment?
Oh, well, what are the challenges? You mentioned quite a few already. Yes, it is very difficult to hire. It is very difficult to embed new members of the team who don't know the code base, especially in a company that has, lots of tech. And productivity drops because you need lots of overheads to train and bring those people up to speed. So, and for that you need processes. So this challenge is ahead of us. As I mentioned, we're hoping that from next year we are going to expand the team, and we are preparing actively for that big event. And the way we prepare for it is to create an institutional structure to allow us to minimize the drop in productivity of the existing team, and still allow for the training of newcomers. Because in a small business, ultimately, it's the key decision makers, the most productive members of the team, suddenly having to earmark a chunky amount of their time training someone who may not even last or for that long, because they may burn out or they may decide to go elsewhere. So it's a huge risk.
It is a huge risk. It's a real challenge for lots of businesses in the software industry. Let's just say that the engineers can be quite promiscuous. They get lots of offers because of the lack of talent perhaps in the UK, or even when you nearshore. And dealing with that is, I've witnessed it many times with software businesses, and it's a constant battle, isn't it? It's a constant battle. So have you got any strategies in place? Don't need to tell me right now what they are, but do you have any strategies in place to be able to deal with those challenges?
Yeah, I've received interesting. Well, I'm definitely shopping for advice. So we have. I've been to a number of meetings for entrepreneurs. The last one was at the Cranfield University, where I had some very interesting advice from prominent business leaders. I brought in a new non-executive director who's helping me a lot with the processes. So it's a discovery process.
Yeah.
And I've also been fortunate to be part of Santander X100 acceleration program, which has given me access to tons of advice from various consulting firms. And if I were to distill all of that, it pretty much it's a bit of a chicken and egg problem, because ultimately you need to spend money to bring in the expertise in house.
Yeah.
Pretty much, I would need a CTO whose only job is to train other people, and those other people would then probably not bother the existing development team, and then I would pretty much create almost like a separate vertical inside the organization. And I think that, conceptually it makes sense. It's least disruptive, but it's most expensive, and it's also the fastest. So pretty much, I have those three variables. It's the speed, it's the cost, and it's disruption. And I need to, I would say, calibrate it to my need and affordability at that time.
Yeah, and there's always going to be pressures inside the business with regards to where to deploy revenue, particularly since you guys have funded your business through growth, which is extremely admirable. Lots of software businesses would be looking to get institutional investment and think that that's the route to market. You've done something very different. You've developed your business from your own from natural.
We have angels, but only angels.
Yeah, but you haven't looked outside for institutional money, which is which, as I say, I think that's admirable, because it provides a different tension inside the business. And so, in terms of growing your market share, with regards to the marketing, those plans, are they in place in the way that you want them to be in place? Are you on course for delivering the growth that you want to deliver?
Well, I mean, that's to be seen. The plans are being crafted right now, and we have pretty much, it's not sort of rocket science. Given, if you know that we are an e-sign and a portal provider, there is an element of viral marketing, because anyone who uses us becomes exposed to our brand. So that's one leg that we want to focus on. We are now expanding our sort of channel partners we work with in various geographies, which is I would say, expensive but route to market, but also very rapid if you get the right partners. And then the third one is content marketing. We publish thought leadership pieces. We publish news. We write about the industries we work in, because we believe we have something to say, and that also helps not only with SEO but with engagement. And those three things combined, we believe will work, but
Okay.
time will show.
Yeah, it will indeed. And you've got an exciting product. So, so what does the future look like for you,
Yes.
business?
So I am cautiously optimistic, because as I mentioned, I have very good advisors and a very solid team that has been around with the business for a long time, and we are aligned on the strategy. So we spent the last, I would say, 12 months really trying to understand the growth levers. How do we scale? How do we scale this beyond our current, I would say, parameter? And I think we have a solid strategy. We know what we're doing. We are pretty much in execution mode, and keeping our eyes open on how to fine tune it. But what's exciting is that we hope that the heavy lifting sort of thinking process is over. Of course, the world changes so quickly that you go into the battle and the plans have to be torn on the first day. We've done this many times before. I mean, look, I had to change strategy several times before. I'm not worried about it. But it's this sort of honeymoon period when you still are not certain that the plans you've drafted are wrong. So you go with it.
Yeah, yeah. I can't remember which famous army general said, plans are useless until you haven't got one. So it's imperative to constantly review that plan, but not be wedded to it, to have a vision outside of it. And it sounds like you guys are being really flexible as that. So so it sounds like you're more or less on track with your growth goals. There's some challenges ahead. Opening up the different distribution channels is a great thing to do, clearly. As a business owner, what's your biggest lesson over the last few years?
Well, we've had COVID, we have war in Ukraine, we have completely unpredictable things. So I would say, all of these were very humbling experiences, which affected so many people, and here we are, on this little boat building a business. So, one lesson is that, well, no matter how hard we work and how much we think, there is sometimes very little that we can actually do about a situation, and we just need to accept it. And accepting that certain doors are closed, or a certain segment industry is no longer for us because of a dramatic change in situation, is a very hard, I would say, thing to admit to oneself and then move on. But I think that that's what we had to do over the last few years, and we've done it. So to me, it's a hard won lesson that hard decisions need to be made, even if you feel that you're destroying value, or if an opportunity passes you by. But that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the main lesson from the last few years.
Yeah, resonates with the book, The Hard Thing About Hard Things. I don't know if you've ever read that. It's a great book about someone who developed very successfully a software business, and then went exited the business, and then set up a very, very successful VC. But some of the learnings from that are very, very attuned to what you've just been saying. It's adapt or die, be flexible, look what the market's telling you, don't close your eyes to new ideas or radical thought, because that's the thing that may drive your business forward. And that's exactly what you've done. So, and being agile in your environment, I would have thought would have been possibly the biggest strength that you could have. Would that be right?
Well, in the software business, everyone claims they're doing agile. Doing it actually isn't as straightforward as you think.
But agile, not just as in the working practice, but being agile as a business, being able to.
Oh yes. Well, absolutely. I mean, but I would say that agility is only half of the story, because in many cases things just happen. A channel partner ditches you, or someone you work with gets acquired and is no longer interested in your partnership, or someone gets into a partnership without actually being honest and doesn't deliver. I mean, there are lots of things that just happen, even though the opportunity's there, you think. And that's where it's just about having the wherewithal to move on past that. I don't know if you would call it agility. It's almost it's just business, isn't it?
Yes, although it sounds to me that you have been more reactive to the situation because you have that mindset. Some businesses remain quite rigid, and it sounds like you've been flexible with your business and your business model, and made the smart moves, which is great, because you've ended up with a really great business, and you're developing it and you're growing it still in challenging environments, and in a challenging sector as well. So well done to you. I think it's formidable what you've done. So
thank you. Thank you. Look, as a sole founder, I would say there are lots of drawbacks to setting up a business on your own. I mean, part of one of the biggest drawbacks is that institutional money isn't particularly interested in sole founders. So in many ways, that was the route that I knew I am embarking on from the very beginning. I pretty much knew that it's angels and that's it.
Yeah. Okay. And that's you knew what your options were, and then you developed what you had to develop around those options. You drilled down, you focused, and you made the right choices, clearly, because of the situation that you're in now. So have you got any plans that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I already told you that the two things we're doing. I think the retail product is probably the biggest single announcement we'll be making, but not just yet. So I can't tell you more, but I'd love to be able to update you when we do release it, and we hope to make a big splash out of that.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. So if I could take you back to when you're 18 years old, what advice would you give now to your 18-year-old self?
Start early. I would say, well, look, I'm of Polish extraction, so when I was 18, the reality of my of my country at the time has very little resemblance to what it is right now. So, but as an entrepreneur, I would say that I probably already knew then that I wanted to build something and to run something, but I didn't have the means or the confidence to even think about it seriously, and the surrounding environment wasn't really receptive to 18-year-olds starting businesses. I mean, to set up a limited company probably would take a fortune and 3 months of work, etc. And here in the UK, it takes 10 minutes
Yeah.
or 15, let's say. So there are certain ambitions that have to wait. But if you can, start early. That's probably the lesson.
That's lovely. Well, look, thank you so much for your time. We wish you continued success with your business. We would love to be kept up to date with what you guys are doing. And good luck.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.